I'm Gab, he's Jules, blue sky, sort of over West London. Jules, we have our continental champions, a 5-0 beatdown in the final, completely one-sided. Your thoughts on Cruz Azul winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup? Because that's what I'm talking about.
Yes,
No, I'm
yes,
kidding.
exactly.
We will get to Cruz Azul later. Do not worry, CONCACAF Champions. We're talking about the other 5-0 beatdown, the one we were both at.
Yeah, incredible, man. I don't think I've recovered yet of that night, that final. To see my team play that way with my children and half of the family in the stands was just exceptional. In my wildest dreams, in all the PSG fans' wildest dreams, the players, Luis Enrique's, you couldn't have written a script like this, and they did. It was a masterclass, almost a perfect performance, and just a game for the ages, really.
You say almost the perfect performance, and I would suggest that what kept it from being the perfect performance is at one point Bastoni nutmegs. I think it was it might have been Doué actually.
Yeah, it was Doué. Yeah.
And also some of Donnarumma's kicking was not super spot on. I cannot
but
see
like,
anything else that Paris Saint-Germain stops it from being perfect.
perfect performances they don't exist. So.
But this is pretty darn close. Just and what I found remarkable about this is we all saw pathways for Paris Saint-Germain winning, right? But what struck me, what we did not include, and we thought they might win with pressing, possession, speed, technical ability, all this stuff. But we never thought that they would also look so much more accomplished, so much better at decision making, so much more mature. If you couldn't see the players' faces, you might have thought that, oh, Paris Saint-Germain must be the veteran, experienced side because they're doing everything right, they're completely unfazed, they're not rattled.
Yeah. Although we've seen this kind of performance before against Liverpool at home, for example, in the last 16 first leg, and yet they didn't take their chances that night, unlike what they did in the final on Saturday. But this level of performance and this sort of domination, this sort of we have the ball, you can't come near us, we can do everything we want, verticality, play in transition, keep the ball, move the ball around, the fluidity within the structure that we talked a lot on the show, which is what this team is so special about, is the mobility of all the players. If Doué comes inside, then Dembele goes on the right. Hakimi was so impressive as a left winger. There was somebody at right back when Hakimi comes in. So all of that is brilliant, but we've seen it before this season. But what the surprise came from the fact that they could do it in the final of the Champions League to start with, and also the fact that Inter didn't seem to think they'd be able to do it because they had no plan against it.
I think Inter's plan was to, having watched the previous games, was to, and Paris Saint-Germain starting so quickly, was to sit back, absorb the pressure for the first 20 minutes and grow into the game, keep the ball in midfield and so on. The problem is when you concede twice in the first 20 minutes, then that plan goes out the window. It's like Mike Tyson, everybody's a plan until they get punched in the face. That was getting punched in the face, very much so. That said, I think Inter kind of made everything worse from there on out, including Simone Inzaghi. I don't know if you agree with that, but for me, there was one potential turning point. The Marcus Thuram header, minute 37, where you thought, all right, go back before halftime, Paris Saint-Germain nerves, but he put his header wide and nothing changed. I mean, this is the only thing maybe you can slightly hang on to.
Yeah, there's the one for Acerbi 10 minutes earlier.
That was innocuous, though.
Well, the same corner, Acerbi just slightly mistiming his jump, but then he's on his own. It's a free header and he goes over the bar, and then Marcus, at least there's a defender in front of him. I mean, not even a defender, it's Kvaratskhelia, but that can maybe just disturb him a little bit. But yeah, and set pieces was always going to be the key. But I think what's even more telling is that there's that, Gab, and you're right. If they score there, it's 2-1, and then you just don't know, although Dembele has a big chance after that too. But then at the start of the second half, where Inter have to go for it, really, they have two wide set piece to Çalhanoğlu, and both deliveries are pretty bad. One goes way at the fourth or fifth post, and the other one is too short. And these also were big moments that Çalhanoğlu didn't deliver.
Yeah, and I think it was definitely on Inter's big players when you look for them to try to get the lift. They didn't do it. Although I feel on a night like this, I don't even blame the individual players. I think they could not do it because Paris Saint-Germain would not let them do it. Jules, afterwards, people talk man of the match. I mean, I didn't get a vote in it this time, or any of the other 20 Champions League finals I've been to. Yeah. However, if I'd had a vote, I would have really, really struggled.
Yeah.
Because I might have just ended up giving it to Donnarumma, even though he had the least to do with the victory, simply because he's Italian. No, but seriously, like it was hard to pick somebody out. It went to Désiré Doué, and maybe it's inevitable. The goals, he was on a hat trick, he had the assist. Although, if you really want to get sort of persnickety about it, one of them was deflected and stuff. I know, but also more, it's not even being persnickety. There's so many other great performances from Dembele to Vitinha as well. I also thought it's going to go under the radar, except for people who notice that he was responsible for the second goal by keeping the ball in play. But Pacho as well. I've not been a big Pacho guy. I don't think he put a foot wrong. No, whereas Marquinhos might have had a couple moments. Very, very few. And Hakimi, of course. And by the way, Ashraf, big shout out. You only spent 1 year at Inter. You scored a Champions League final. You do not celebrate. Some people don't like that. I think it speaks to the kind of person he is, to the time he had in his 1 year at Inter.
Yeah, and by the way, he scored in the final, semi-final, quarter-final of the Champions League. That's your right back.
And he's a full-back, like you said. Yeah. But in the end, it was Désiré Doué and many people. And the hype machine inevitably starts up to the
which
point
was there already a bit before, but that takes it to another level.
And Mark Ogden, who I was sitting next to, he got so excited.
Yeah.
And so he's got a piece up asking whether, Doué Yamal, stand back, Messi and Cristiano. Now, I got a sense of deja vu because I wrote a piece 3 years ago about, look, Haaland versus Mbappe. Are they ready to kind of be the next Messi versus Cristiano? Now we've just skipped over Haaland and Mbappe, because
and the others,
Mbappe only scored 40-odd goals this season,
44.
And Haaland 30-odd, and he was injured, but whatever. Like those guys are yesterday's news. It's all about Doué and Yamal. All right, I'm gonna come out right now and say this. This is way premature. It's way premature for Yamal. It's not fair to put this kind of pressure. Yamal is still not even 18 years old yet, right?
Yeah.
I think it's even more premature for Doué because, and this is not a knock on him, but this is a guy who was not a fixture in the Paris Saint-Germain team really until Christmas.
Yeah.
It's his first season at a big club. Maybe we pump the brakes a little bit before we start mentioning him in the same breath, not just as Messi and Cristiano, but even Haaland and Yamal. Haaland and
Mbappe.
And Mbappe.
No, I agree with you, Gab. It's a fair point. What I would say, though, outside of the incredible talent that they clearly both have and very gifted, no puns intended with Désiré Doué's name, of course, but proper gift that they have, that is something that they're very special players, different profile, but special player. But what I am, and I don't know Lamine Yamal at all, but I'm starting to know Désiré Doué and his family and his dad and all of that. The pressure has just no impact on them. And that's what I'm amazed the most by. You can look at the talent and think, okay, yeah, they are super talented. They've been talented for a very long time. Désiré Doué started in Ligue 1 at 16. He scored his first goal in Ligue 1 at 16. So this is nothing new that he's that good. It's just that the pressure has no impact on them. They just doesn't faze them. They're not scared. They are so confident, so sure of their own ability. They can take on anybody. They feel they are, that they are the best all the time, always. And they're not, I don't think they're arrogant in that sense. They just are that kind of personalities. And that's what I find the most impressive, really, at that age.
Putting my football nerd hat on, another guy that I think we have to talk about is Ousmane Dembele. Again, we're talking about somebody who was super gifted, super hyped at a very young age, when he was playing almost exclusively as a winger at Borussia Dortmund. And he was excited because great movement, great athleticism, but also two-footed, like pretty obviously two-footed.
Yeah.
I don't even think if he has a problem. I'm sure he must have a preference, but like,
no, I don't think so. I really don't.
So you could hit free kicks with
either. He says, like, really. I mean, there's that famous video that I've seen from a few years ago, but still now he says, like, no.
So then he moves to Barcelona, and it's a very stop-start time
At 20,
Barcelona.
he was very young, too young.
He was very young. I mean, very young. I mean,
20.
It's older than what Bellingham was when he moved to Real Madrid,
not
right?
much, but
Different
yeah,
players
still.
develop in different ways. And he spends 6 years there, something like that.
Yeah.
And he has his moments, but I think it's pretty obvious that there was a sense that, all right, you did not harness your gifts. Comes to Paris Saint-Germain, plays as a winger, people making jokes, oh, look, he's dominating Farmers League, ha, ha, ha. And then it's asked to move to center forward. Not only does he play center forward, he reinterprets the position in its own way, really along the lines of what Luis Enrique asked him to do. You know, we often talk about players not wanting to run, not being willing runners or working off the ball. He becomes a pressing machine worthy of Kai Havertz, who's always my pressing machine example, to go with the goals and the assists and everything. And I think also with his young team, obviously Marquinhos, Fabian Ruiz are the leaders. You need somebody. He's not as old as Marquinhos, but he's got much more big club experience, I think, than anybody other than Marquinhos, maybe. That's remarkable.
Yeah, I think the transformation of Ousmane Dembele is incredible. I think it's something that soon you can show young players and to see. He's not the first winger to move into a centre forward position. I mean, obviously Thierry Henry is the other massive, from a French point of view, the other massive example that we have. So it's not something rare or that has never been done before. But despite him at Rennes when he was really young, and again, he started at Rennes when he was 16, a bit like Désiré Doué, and his coach at the time, Roland Courbis, played him in that position a little bit, had clearly seen there was something there more even than a winger, but then after that he was always on the wings. The way he pressed Sommer, which was on Saturday night, which was a big part of Luis Enrique's game plan and tactic, was incredible. The way he plays his leadership, the way he took that leadership after Mbappe left, the way he stepped up, 45 goals involvement in 49 games in all competitions this season, just incredible numbers. And he's the best player in the best team in Europe. So for me, Ballon d'Or talk or everything you want, he deserves it. But it's more that what he has become in the last 5-6 months that I find incredible. And there's this famous bet that we talked about before with his mate, that if he first reached 30 goals, he would get 2 very expensive watches, a Rolex and a Patek Philippe. And then he played double and quit and said, actually, forget about that. What's the bet if I win the Champions League with this team? And they said, okay, if you win the Champions League with this team, you're going to get this incredible Rolex Arabic dial, which is a very rare, super expensive $500,000 watch. And guess what they gave him yesterday at the stadium when there was the big celebrations? The Arabic dial.
Who's his mate, Nasser?
No, they're also very wealthy mates that do a lot of things. But yeah, it's exceptional watch.
We've seen so many talented players hit upon hard time and lose their confidence, lose their self-belief. I mean, the fact that he clearly lost that when he was at Barcelona, between his injuries, between the criticism and everything. And then he comes back, and it's not seamless. There's bumps. There was obviously the game when Luis Enrique dropped him entirely and whatnot. To come back in this position, I cannot say enough about this guy's character, frankly. Now, from the Inter perspective, Inzaghi spoke after the game, and look, he was very clear. He says, the only reason I'm here talking is because I respect the work that you and the media do, and I respect our fans in case they want to hear from me. But right now, I'm so upset. I just want to, go crawl in a hole, or I'm paraphrasing here. But he emphasized the fact, look, we had an incredible season. They fell at every hurdle at the end, because obviously they lost the title to Napoli on the last day of the season. They were stopped in the Coppa Italia semi-final by Milan, and then obviously they lost the Super Cup. But I think it's worth remembering that they're also doing this with a team that's still under tremendous financial restrictions. People look, they have all these old players. They are the oldest teams out of the 96 in Europe's Big Five leagues by weighted minutes. But that's also because when you sign free agents and stuff, they tend to be older. I think it's a tremendous achievement what he's done, and I think he's 100%.
Yeah.
And I think they should be really, really proud. Or do we go and put this on one game where you wipe the floor? Like if he had
No.
lost this game 2-1 and it'd been much closer,
Exactly.
would it be a different conversation?
No, you're right. But it feels because they were humiliated on Saturday, if it fails like that. I mean, I thought the Gazzetta was so, and maybe rightly so, so critical and so negative about everything. And after a game like that, yeah, maybe we don't have to go back to Giannis Antetokounmpo and the failure quotes. Is
Right.
it a failure season really when you reached final, almost a final in your league, semi-final of your cup, final of your Super Cup? No, it's not. However, they will always be remembered as the team that lost 2 Champions League final in 3 years, a Europa League final, 2 Serie A titles on the last day. And that's not nice. And they will remember more for what they lost than for what they won, despite being a great team with a great coach.
I think the legacy of this, I mean, somebody's obviously tracked Inter for many, many decades. I think this is maybe the second worst day in Inter's history after May 5th. And I don't want to get into what May 5th was, but you can go and look it up if you want. That said, I mean, you're right. He got to the hurdle. And, in the end, losing the Serie A title at least, I don't want to pick on individual players, but if Jan Bissek doesn't jump, he doesn't give away that penalty against Lazio, and Inter are champions. If Marko Arnautovic sorts himself out a little bit better, Inter are champions.
Yeah.
And then we have a totally different conversation. So for me, I think you got to step back and you have to analyze the whole thing. In this game, he was completely unprepared. Probably would have lost anyway. Maybe not. What I do find remarkable, and we touched upon this before, is we were all presenting this final as if it was experience versus athleticism and freshness and youth, blah, blah, blah. And yet, it was experience and decision-making that let Inter down for those first 2 goals directly.
Yeah.
Not that praise Vitinha first pass to Doué that set up Hakimi's first goal. But that is a complete misreading of the defense, especially from Fede Di Marco.
Yeah.
And then on the second one, again, I'm not going to criticize Barella as a warrior, blah, blah, blah. He has to make a decision based on experience. Do I let this ball run, or just shepherd the ball out of play?
Yeah.
Or do I think William Pacho can get to it? He made a decision based on his experience that better to let the ball go out of play, run out of play for a corner. And Pacho gets to it. And then they go up the other way, and then there's the deflected goal.
True. And there's Acerbi and Çalhanoğlu against Dembele, and they let him pass the ball crossway to Doué for the shot. And Di Marco who turns again, and Di Marco should not turn his back onto that shot and deflects it. So yeah, you're right. Big mistakes that experienced players should not be making, and they made. So how come they made them? Was it because they were not prepared, tired? Is it because they felt under pressure because PSG started the game so well? Because usually they don't make those mistakes.
Is it because sometimes we overrate experience,
Maybe.
especially vis-a-vis maybe a younger player who's very well trained, who maybe hasn't seen all these situations and he can't process it himself, but he's received very clear, obvious instructions.
Yeah.
I don't know. All these things come into it.
We said, we discussed it together, I mean, before the final and on the show on Thursday, but PSG had been the team that ran the most in the Champions League this season. Before the final, 118 kilometers per game in average. Right? It's massive. Inter the least, but Inter then ran
92.
more. 92. But then Inter ran more in the final than PSG. And PSG only ran, only 105 Ks in that final.
And Inter, I think, were 111.
Yeah.
So like that.
Because PSG didn't need to run more because they ran well. They pressed well when they had to do. Dembele, especially as we said, to force bad passes. The 2 wide players as well. But I think he says a lot about how good PSG were and the performance in the final to the fact that they didn't even have to run as much as they usually do in average.
Yeah, I would say they probably also ran faster than he
Yeah,
did. But you're right. No, I think that's a very evident and accurate way of reading this. I want to talk a little bit about the fans because those who've been privileged to go to Champions League finals like we have these big tifo banners before the game. Inter didn't have one.
No.
And they didn't have one, and it was in protest at the club or more broadly, actually, at football, saying ultras are taken for granted. Right? What we bring in terms of color and whatever. So they didn't do anything. And I don't know if this is the case, but I've seen Paris Saint-Germain's tifos as well, their pregame ones in the past. What they did was fine, but I've seen far more impressive ones. I wonder if that is a sentiment to some degree shared a little bit by the Paris Saint-Germain ultras as well.
No, not for us, no.
So there is no level of repression, of isolation. They're very happy with the way.
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard anything like that, and they've done tifos.
So why was this one relative to the other ones a little more muted?
Well, no, because in your stadium you've got your the area when you can create them, build them. There's help from for example, I believe you can't hang up anything up from the top of the
stage. They don't allow you to do that.
Yeah. So at the Parc des Princes, you can pretty much, the club allows you to do anything you want. So you can have, like we saw in the semi-final against Arsenal, this incredible tifo that the PSG Ultras did all around the stadium. You could not do that there. So they stayed with the most Paris Saint-Germain. I was going to say basic. It's not basic because it was still beautiful, but just a bit of a normal one because they could not do much more than that. And they managed to bring the flares in, and we had the lady on the mic during the game saying, "You're not allowed to do the flares." So they're going to get obviously fined quite a lot of money, I suspect, by UEFA, but I don't think they care right now.
I think they'll get 3 fines after this, and you're right. I mean, they don't care. One for the pyro, one for the pitch invasion at the end, which
was always going to happen. I tell you that.
It was funny, and I want to praise the police and the policing on this one. So I don't know how much of this went out on television, but basically what happened is you have the medal presentation, you have the very original thing where they stand in front of the champions thing and they all celebrate. And then you have Paris Saint-Germain moving over towards the PSG end to thank the ultras for, not just the ultras, but all the fans that were over there for supporting them. And they're given instructions, do not go straight to the edge. And you had this big line of police officers in riot gear.
Yeah.
Marquinhos takes a cup and leads the players right through the barrier of police. And that was a moment where I thought, okay, the police could have said, no, Marquinhos, you're not coming through here, right? Safety, blah, blah, blah. They made a decision. I thought it was the right decision. I thought it was a rational decision. Some people will look at it and say, oh, wait, but by allowing Marquinhos and the PSG team to go down there, you had what happened afterwards, where they were right essentially at the very edge. I mean, the people in the first row could have come out and touched it.
Yeah.
Where eventually you had all the fans streaming forward and coming onto the pitch. When that happened again, they were on the pitch. I don't know if you were still out there or if you'd gone, but they were out there for a good 10 minutes.
Yeah, more than that, I think.
Even more than that, before everything was cleared away. And again, the way they got them to leave was the police officers just stood there, held their ground.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't violent. They didn't, no batons, no threats. And eventually the PSG fans says, all right, the players are gone.
Yeah,
we're here to the corner.
They dug quite
Let's
a lot.
Go.
They dug a lot of the grass out as well to bring home.
And I thought they might have taken the goal home as well.
Well, the net's for sure. The net is gone. But yeah, it was. But the players had to go back in the dressing room where I don't think they would wanted to, and wait for the ultras to go back into the stands before coming back out and see all their family members that were in the stadium. So yeah.
Final point on this really touching moment. At the end, the banner of Luis Enrique embracing his daughter, Shauna. To tell us a story about it, because not everybody's gonna know.
Yeah, if you don't know the story, Luis Enrique has 3 children, so the 2 eldest, and then the youngest one, Sana, who passed away in 2019 at the age of 9. So she was 5 when Luis Enrique won his first and until Saturday last Champions League final with Barcelona, the treble. And on that night against Juventus, she was on the pitch after the game and she planted in the pitch the Catalunya flag and the Barcelona kind of flag together in one with her dad. And Sana passed away in 2019 and Luis Enrique has created a foundation for her, talks a lot about her in a sad way, but in a very happy way too, in the sense of we can't be sad the fact that she's not here anymore because we are too happy that she was with us for 9 years, basically. That's the message that he sends. And he didn't know, the club knew, he didn't know that the PSG Ultras had prepared this banner where you see Luis Enrique himself now planting the PSG flag in a pitch with Sana looking at him. And it was a very emotional moment. He had tears in his eyes and like red eyes. But I liked what he said after, and which is fair. He obviously thanked the fans and said how emotional he was, but also that he doesn't have to win the Champions League to think about her. And that it's actually more when he loses or when his team loses that he thinks about her the most. But it was an amazing moment to just cap what was an incredible night.
There's a documentary out there. I don't know who produced it, but he talks about how, for him and his family, they talk about her every single day.
Yeah.
And he feels that like she's a presence in his life all along. And supremely moving. All right, Jules, we have more Champions League related stuff.
Yes.
Gigi Donnarumma says he's not sure he's sticking around in Paris. He's the highest paid keeper in the world. He has 1 year left on his contract. And there is no sign of the club, or his camp says, wanting to discuss a new deal with him.
Yeah, no, the negotiations and the talks have restarted. I think for a moment they stalled a bit back in like January, February. And Enzo Raiola and Luis Campos are in contact for it. They would like him to stay. I think he stated already, he said publicly in interviews that he wanted to stay as well. And I think he will stay.
Yeah, and he has to say, I don't know, because until he signs. But it's funny because that is a ton of, this goes back to the original sin of the contract that Milan. No, I think it goes even further. The contract he got with Milan. Which just set the baseline so high.
True.
Again, he makes around 10 million euros a year net, which for those who like thinking in weekly pounds per week is something close to 380,000 pounds a week. That is an absurd.
Yeah.
That is it's not absurd. I mean, he's arguably one of the top 3 or 4 goalkeepers in the world, but he's one of the top 7 or 8 highest paid players in the world. In fact, maybe even top 5 if you exclude like Messi and Cristiano in these special cases. And he's probably not one of the top 5 players in the world.
And guess who's also not sure if he's staying, Gabi? Simone Inzaghi.
Yeah, so we touched upon it before. He was asked afterwards, so like, how do you pick yourself up for going forward? And he says, like, I don't know. Well, will you at least be going to the Club World Cup? And he said, I don't know. The club have made it very clear that, dude, you have a contract, you're staying. I don't know where this comes from, if he really is emotional and upset and worn out. There's a meeting on Tuesday where I think they're also going to discuss kind of plans going forward. I think this is what's in play. I really don't want to think that it's this massive offer that he supposedly has from Saudi Arabia, because that would make me very sad.
I know it would.
UEFA's technical observers, who are a bunch of coaches and ex-players, released their team of the season. Jules, I detect a little bit of recency bias, but I have no problem with it. There's 7 Paris Saint-Germain players, and no country has more players on the list than Italy, who, of course, decided not to play in the last 2 World Cups. I can be proud of that. What jumps out for you?
I think 7 is fair because it's a very attacking team, as you would expect, really. Donnarumma in goal, we said, best goalkeeper in the Champions League this season, no problem. Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, the best fullbacks in the Champions League too this season, and probably Hakimi for sure the best right back in the world. Nuno Mendes not far from being probably the best left back in the world. Bastoni and Marquinhos are centre back. I like Pacho more than Marquinhos this season.
I think we know that it's like the Ballon d'Or. Some people get in on reputation. Marquinhos is the club captain and whatever.
Yeah.
And I am a huge Marquinhos fan. I always had him near the top all those years. I thought he was even better than Thiago Silva for many years.
Yeah.
That said, this season he's not been on the same level, and I would have had Pacho ahead of him.
Definitely. Then Vitinha, Declan Rice, yes, definitely no problem. And then the 4 forwards are Lamine Yamal, Ousmane Dembele, and Rafinha. Until then, no problem. Really, they're the 3 outstanding players in the Champions League this season. Désiré Doué managed to find his way into this team of the season when, as you said earlier, Gabi, he really is starting playing. He played every game, so he played 17 games this season in the Champions League, which is the same as PSG. There was no problem. But to have him there purely just on what he did in the final and a bit before, to be fair, against Aston Villa and Liverpool, but still.
I think we have to accept this is based on the final. It's not supposed to be,
a lot of it, yeah.
but a lot of it is inevitably based and influenced by the final. If Arsenal get through, I'm pretty sure Declan Rice is not the only Arsenal player on here. If Inter had won, I'm sure Bastoni wouldn't have been the only guy on here. You can make the same case for almost any other club.
Francesco Acerbi has refused his Italy call-up, citing a lack of respect. Gab, you were counting on him, I'm sure, to stop Erling Haaland in his massive game on Friday in the qualifiers.
I think somebody else was, but no, look, I mean, Acerbi's annoyed because Spalletti didn't call him up, I think, in March after he called him up in November. Again, I think you should be happy. Like, dude, you're old, you're competing on free throws. You know, you can give it a miss in March. This could have all been avoided if Spalletti had rung him and say, "Hey, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna call you. Are you good to come back?" And or Acerbi had rung him and says, "Hey, just in case you think you're calling me, I want to take a break." I think he's being a little bit of a baby here. I don't think Spalletti is a big fan, but equally, you can't say, "Oh, this means so much to me," and then say, "No, I'm not going." At this stage.
Yeah.
Jules, we're not done. We have more quick hits.
Let's go, Gab.
Real Madrid have paid some 10 million euros to Liverpool so that Trent Alexander-Arnold can join them a month early and play in the Club World Cup. Your thoughts?
I'm flabbergasted. I won't lie. I was told first that they were negotiating and it was going to be a small fee. And I think I said on the FC show one night, I said, okay, a small fee for Real Madrid is not much. It's okay. I don't think then it was necessary because Trent could have joined on July 1st. And July 1st, you should be, if you're Real Madrid, still in the competition. So he could have trained on his own before that. And then be okay to join in on July 1st and still have 2 weeks with them until the final, if they make the final, for example. To literally pay 10 million for him to be able to have the first 2 weeks of this competition is...
I think what the motivation here, and first of all, shout out to Trent. He doesn't need to do this. He could say, I want a break, right? He could easily have said that. This tells you that given how disappointingly last season ended, Real Madrid think it's really important to go and do well in this, to make a statement, to help Xabi Alonso along in his new gig, and that Trent is obviously going to be a part of that. And don't forget, winner gets 90 odd million. And I think that's what they're what they're shooting for.
I looked it up. July 1st is, I think, straight after the last 16. Don't tell me Real Madrid can't make it to the last 16 of the Club World Cup without Trent Alexander-Arnold. They don't need him.
But I think the argument is if you drop in a right back into the team, especially a right back who's not known for his defensive prowess and sense of positioning, and you're working on movements and whatever else defensively, and your coach is Xabi Alonso, who's into his tactics, maybe?
I disagree.
I don't know.
But on Thursday, you were skeptical, Gabi. But now Max Allegri has been confirmed as the new AC Milan boss, the return. Are you skeptical?
3 years out of the game, didn't cover himself in glory in his last gig. I think most of all, what this says to me is that this is a massive change in direction, right? Based on what we know of what Allegri's
in terms of style of football?
Not so much style of football. I think Allegri's much more flexible. I mean, he's a football guy. He knows his tactics, right? More so, Allegri, when he talks about, categories of players, he's not necessarily a lover of young players, unless it's like Paul Pogba or somebody when he was young and good. This to me says we're going in a different direction. Allegri is here to win now. He's not here to build for some future. I mean, so clearly at the top, they've decided to move away from that model, which you can call sort of Red Bullish, Germanish, whatever, with the younger players and growing together, and to something else. I hope it doesn't also harbor a change in style, because I think the football that we saw from Allegri at Juve is not a good fit for this Milan team. Kevin Kelleher is reportedly on the verge of joining Brentford for £18 million, with Mark Flecken on his way to Bayer Leverkusen for around half that. Jules, does this make sense?
I think you overpay a bit if you're Brentford for a player coming from another Premier League club. I mean, it's 12 million rising to 18 with bonuses, so it might not be 18. And to be fair, even 18, I think is a fair price for Kelleher. I think he's a great goalkeeper. He's still young. He's got a lot of experience, played in finals, has been in this squad for quite a long time. So I'm not surprised. And for Mark Flecken and for Brentford and Mark Flecken, for Flecken to go the other way to Bayer Leverkusen, Brentford to get decent money for him, and he's a good goalkeeper on his line, especially. I think that makes a lot of sense together.
I think I think they're overpaying substantially, not because Keller isn't great, but simply because of his contractual situation. He has a year left.
Yeah,
I think
12 million 1 year. I don't think they're overpaying.
I think what this says to me is that Keller says, I really like the fit at Brentford. Because when he projects forward to his career, a year from now, I mean, he could force a loan. He had a lot of leverage over Liverpool. So this says to me, A, he really respects Liverpool, and because he could have made life quite difficult here, and then gone anywhere in a free and really picked his spot.
He wanted to leave this summer and play.
No, I know he did. But what I'm saying is he could have done that. And that might have been better for his career. And I would imagine that he really felt the vibe. He felt the fit with Brentford. Because like I said, a year from now, he could have gone anywhere.
Antonio Conte, meanwhile, is sticking around to defend his title at Napoli. He's been promised a big budget and things are looking good for Jonathan David and Kevin De Bruyne to join him.
Yeah, in the press, they're even saying 150 million euros. I'm like, there's no way they're spending 150 million euros. Certainly not net. Or maybe this includes the wages for free agents like Jonathan David and Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne looks very, very close at this stage.
Yeah.
You get those two guys in. You need to get, I think, a top central defender. Buongiorno's very good, but injured again. Rahmani played every minute of every game. Ain't going to happen again. Conte wants his options at the back, fine. But yeah, with Jonathan David and Kevin De Bruyne, if they manage to land them, he's in a pretty good spot all of a sudden. Those Saudi sirens won't go away, Jules. El Hilal really want Bruno Fernandes, apparently.
Yeah, they're there. They're very much there. The big contract is on the table with a lot of money, a lot of zeros on that paycheck. I don't know. I don't know if it's down to him, to United, to decide what to do. Does he want to go? I don't know. But I think it's hard to say no to a contract like that at his age.
Especially when you figure the first sort of, like most superstars of his magnitude start earning a lot of money from the early 20s. Bruno Fernandes did not, certainly not in Novara and Sampdoria and Udinese, places like that. Even at Sporting Lisbon, he wasn't making a lot of money when he's player of the year. That said, Bruno, think about it. Listen to your heart. Let the football talk. Stay where you are.
It's official. Damian Comolli joins Juventus as general director and Giorgio Chiellini becomes football officer. That's a great name for him. Yeah. And Nico Tudor seems to be sticking around, or at least for now.
Yeah, at least at the Club World Cup, even though he said, I think whoever coaches Juve in the Club World Cup
that's what
should
he
get
said.
the job for next year. Well, whatever. I think what this speaks to is Cristiano Giuntoli is leaving the club. And I think it's right. He's the guy who picked Thiago Motta, which was disastrous.
Yeah.
He's had a really difficult time. I think he's to blame for a lot of the transfer moves, from Lloyd Kelly to Renato Vega to other stuff, to Coop Miners as well. Maybe Coop Miners will be good. There's a ton of money to spend. The mishandling of the Vlahovic situation. So for me, let's see what Damian Comolli can do. Obviously, like we said last time, it's a bit of an odd one. Because you have a guy who's not really operated at this level in a long time, and you have Giorgio Chiellini, a guy who's operated at this level never.
Yeah.
Manchester City hope to push on in their pursuit of Tijani Reinders from Milan and Ryan Cherki from Lyon. Good fit, Jules?
I like them both a lot. We disagreed with Frank Leboeuf.
Just a little bit.
Sunday, he said that Cherki was not fit for Pep Guardiola's style of football system, which I think is nonsense completely. I don't understand why Frank said that, because I think Ryan Cherki can play in very different ways, in very different systems. We saw that with Fonseca, which is a more positional play than under Pierre Sage, which was more vertical, and Cherki was great in both. So I've got no worries if City signs Cherki and Guardiola signs Cherki, that Ryan would be great for them. And we both love Tijani Reinders anyway, and I think they need that drive and verticality and a player like him to their team, because that's what they're lacking in an aging quite slow midfield. I'm sorry.
Also, when we talk about Manchester City, we have to remember this team's changing. De Bruyne is moving on. Gundogan has a year left. I don't know if he's sticking around. I wouldn't be surprised if Bernardo Silva moves on too.
Yeah.
You certainly can go vertical. You've got the legs to do that in Haaland and Doku and Marmoush and Savinho, if that's how you want to play. So, yeah, I don't see the issue there.
Big week for Chelsea, Gabby. They've reportedly agreed personal terms for Liam Delap and will make a decision on Jadon Sancho.
I think Delap makes a lot of sense. I've been going on since I've been blue in the face about Nico Jackson, needing an alternative. I've had people tell me, "Oh, but Marc Guiu is really good." No, I don't think Marc Guiu fits whatever Enzo Maresca. I don't know how much input he had or whatever, but that makes sense. Jadon Sancho, if you could negotiate,
remind people what the situation is, because it's either £5 million.
So they took him on loan with an obligation to make it permanent, or they have to pay $5 million in compensation, which is essentially is a loan fee for 1 year. This only makes sense if you can agree terms to a reasonable contract with Jadon Sancho. Most of Chelsea's players are not very highly paid, even though they have very long contracts. And if you can get him to fit into that, I think it's worth keeping him around.
Yeah.
Pep Lijnders is joining Manchester City to become the other Pep's assistant. I did not see this heel turn coming, Jules.
Me neither. I mean, Pep Lijnders, Pep Lijnders, if you don't know or if you can't remember, was Jurgen Klopp's assistant. I mean, he had 2 stints there. Very faithful one. And now he goes to
Judas, give us a wave. No, come on. We kid because we love Pep.
Gianpiero Gasperini is officially leaving Atalanta after 9 seasons. Gab, what's next?
He was all in my look. First of all, we need to... What Atalanta and Gasperini did. And I don't...
We've said it
because I like the guy, but it is absolutely amazing. All those top 4 finishes, winning the Europa League and whatnot. It's a credit also to Atalanta because he is not an easy man to deal with.
And nine seasons is a long time.
They work together very, very well. Not a long time, especially in Italian football. He's heavily linked to Roma. I don't know. Do you think that's the right environment for somebody like Gasperini?
I'm not sure. Because as we saw, Gisolfi, the sporting director, has been under pressure quite a lot until Ranieri arrives. Ranieri will also be there upstairs.
To what degree? We don't know.
Exactly. So that could be fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot will also depend on how involved the Friedkins are with the club or appear to be involved. In Rome, they freak out. They don't like it when owners interfere too much, but they also don't like it when they think owners are absent.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gasperini taking another crack at a big club after, of course, having such a rough time at Inter a few years ago. Rafael Leao has been linked with a move to Bayern. Jules, I guess they have money. They have all that money that they were going to spend on Florian Wirtz, so they can spend it on him.
Yeah, if you're Milan, you're like, yes, 150 million you wanted to spend on Wirtz, then here you go. Well, we'll take 100, don't worry. But we leave you 50 million. I mean... I would not go there, but if they want to, then be my guest.
Look, I think if Leao harnesses his talent, it's a bit like we were saying earlier about Dembele.
Is he not too late? Can he really? It's not the same personality.
I don't know. Well, first of all, he's had
a few coaches that tried.
There's been a few coaches that tried. It takes a special one. I would not take this gamble now. In fact, if I were Milan, when Max comes, I says, Max, this is Rafael Leao. What is your plan for him?
Yeah.
Right? And it has to be a better plan than what we got from the previous managers. But yeah, Leao, this would be a stupid move if they said, all right, we have all this money that we had budgeted and Leroy Sané's contract that we thought, we got him to stick around. Okay, fine now, Leroy, you want to leave, Florian, don't come. And let's give the money to Leao. That would be a knee-jerk thing. That would be like, we need to deliver a big-name signing to our fans. That would be stupid. Unless you're 1,000% concerned, the company's like, I can be the Leao whisperer. But I think if you do that,
if you make that work,
if you make that work, you have a top 10 player in the world, hands down.
Absolutely.
The problem is, it's been tough.
Yeah. Cruz Azul have won the CONCACAF Champions Cup, it's called, beating Vancouver 5-0. Gab,
this game was so one-sided.
Yes.
They were like 4-0 up at halftime. So many mistakes, passing, movement. It also didn't help that, the final was played in Mexico, which is very far away from
Yeah.
Canada, as you know. But yeah, this was an absolute beatdown. I'm not going to say it was as much of a beatdown as the Inter game because I have to confess, I only watched extended highlights. I did not catch 90 minutes of this.
Me too.
But yeah, well done, Cruz Azul. And
Well
now in
done.
a couple years, you can play in the Club World Cup.
Well, 4 years.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a wait.
Yeah, but
hey.
still.
And in that vein, we have our 32nd and final Club World Cup participants. We'll get to see our pal, the very handsome Olivier Giroud.
We will, that's right.
Now, for those who weren't paying attention, Club Leon had qualified for the Club World Cup based on the rules, except the rules also say no multi-club ownership. They're also owned by the same people in Monterrey. I think it's actually
Pachuca. No?
Sorry, Pachuca.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pachuca. I think it's actually called Grupo Pachuca that owns them.
Even,
I mean,
yeah.
hey, way to hide that. FIFA actually applied their own rules and said, you can't go. Alajuelense, who are from Costa Rica, they made the argument. In the end, somehow, CAS ruled that
We'll have a playoff final.
we'll have a playoff final. Yeah. And hey, look, let's choose the most popular team in Mexico and the team from LA. Okay.
You're right. And Club America faced LAFC, and Club America took the lead. And you thought, okay, 15 minutes to go, I think it was, and that was going to be it. And
it was 1-0 up.
Yeah, 1-0 up. And to be fair, not much that LAFC had done that far in the game. And to be fair, they turned it around in style, scoring 2 goals. The second one quite late. And
one was at the end, the equalizer, the header.
Yeah.
But it was funny, Jules,
big
because
win.
My flight back to London from Munich was at 7:20 in the morning, and so I'm in the lounge at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's this guy who is pretty well known television executive in North America with a company that has a serious investment in the Club World Cup. And he's like, "Oh, it would be so good for us if Club America." And like, I can understand from a business side why Club America hit. And then his heart sinks as the other goes going.
Denis Bouanga, I mean, Ligue 1 cult hero if you want, but what he's doing there is incredible. So well done to him, and well done to LAFC, Hugo Lloris, and Olivier Giroud, was mentioned, our friends. Mauricio Sarri is on his way back to Lazio just 1 year after he resigned from the job from that same club. Gab, are you surprised?
Yes, I am. I'm surprised that Baroni left. I know they tailed off at the end of the season.
He did a good job.
But I thought he did a great job. Not a good job, a great job with a lot of players who, let's face it, are on the surface not at the same level as the people that they replaced. And Sarri does things his own way. He's a genius. He's also difficult, and we know there were difficulties in his relationships with Lotito at the heart of why he left. And I don't see what has changed. Why a year later you expect to get different results, unless you think that Lotito and Sarri are reformed characters, but that would require a pretty big leap of faith. Johnny Heitinga is the new Ajax boss, Jules. He returned to the club he loves, which means Arne Slot. I'm really sorry, Arne. I'm really sorry. That I misspoke.
I'm sure it's been done before.
Arne Slot is down an assistant.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of rumors that we're not going to repeat on here because we are a serious show about who could come as an assistant. Some big names as well.
Stevie G?
Maybe. And for Johnny Heitinga, the good news, if you're an Ajax fan, is that not the fact that he was a former player and that you would fit, do you think that he would probably fit your model and your style and this philosophy more than Francesco Farioli, for example? But it's more that he's got no hair, Johnny Heitinga. I think from his own decision, because I think he shaves it, which means, as we know, the last 5 titles in the Eredivisie have all been won by bald managers. So this is a pretty good omen from an Ajax point of view, I think, and from Johnny Heitinga himself.
You have to go and troll.
This is great analysis
Ajax all along.
Great analysis.
Okay, so first of all, Johnny Heitinga is more handsome than all the
True,
other
but he still has no
bald
hair.
Dutch managers.
Yeah.
The only thing with him is obviously he doesn't have any experience at the number one.
That's true.
Except for the period he had at Ajax when I think was it Schreuder or Stein, right? Who was there. So he took over half season. Things weren't great. This smacks to me as you're a club in financial difficulty, as we know, because Jordan Henderson very helpfully told us, and the world. all right, let's bring in club legend. The fans aren't going to turn against them. It's a bit like Roma appointing Daniele De Rossi, if you want. And let's keep our fingers crossed and ride out the storm. For Liverpool, I kind of get the sense that Slot had him in, not because they've worked together for many years, because they haven't, but Slot had him in because obviously he had been in the Premier League before. He'd been in Liverpool before, albeit on the blue side. And, he was a good defender. He was a good player for Ajax, who got a bunch of caps as well. And he contributed something. He was kind of like a bridge to a new league for Slot. I don't think this means Arne Slot's team is going to turn to rubbish all of a sudden. Do you?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And Postecoglou is in Greece right now on vacation, but he did speak up about his future.
Yeah. I want to analyze this quote a little bit. He says, I didn't want us to enjoy the moment. Like, okay.
Well,
you
haven't won for like 100 years, and you're like...
But he always wins in his second season,
of
so
course,
he was used to it.
And third season is always better than second season.
He says, I wanted us to think about what's next. Don't settle for this. We got a taste for it now. Club has a taste for it. Let's make sure we're back here again. I guess in the end, when you read the quote, it kind of makes sense. And it's exactly what I would do if I were Ange and I knew that my future at the club was in doubt. I don't know if the chest beating, gung-ho, let's go and win more is necessarily gonna resonate.
I don't think so either. I mean, this week is the week, I think, where the decision will be made, whether to keep him or not. I was told that he was not going to be kept at the club, whether you agree or not, or whether you think like me that this Europa League win and triumph masks all the bad stuff from the league and all the issues that he could have had around the season. I know this was a great moment for the club and for the fans, and sure, and he's the one that led that team and those players to this title and those fans and that club. I just don't think, as we've said before, Gab, we don't have to repeat it. You don't make a decision over a guy that won a final through the whole season.
There were huge celebrations following Paris Saint-Germain's Champions League win, but they were marred somewhat by hundreds of arrests, some 200 injuries, 2 deaths. Jules, I feel like this isn't a football story. I feel like a lot of this is stuff that happened on a night when you have hundreds of thousands of people out on the streets, maybe even millions. And when that happens and it's the middle of the night, you're going to get public order. And in France, of course, going back to the Gilets jaunes and stuff like that, there is a history of things spinning out of control.
For sure, you're right. Yeah, every New Year's Eve, you've got problems. You just change years, and then you feel the need to go and burn cars or loot shops and break windows and things like that. I just don't understand what people are doing. That stupidity. Yesterday, there was incredible celebrations at the Parc des Princes, really wonderful stuff. And outside, they were throwing iron fences onto the Périphérique, which is the big ring road in Paris, from above, from the bridge next to the Parc des Princes, throwing the fences onto the cars who were driving underneath. It's just like sheer stupidity. I just don't understand what anyone would do things like that. So it's a shame. There was 2 deaths, as you said. One was run over by a car in Grenoble, I think. And the other one, there was a fight, one of the screenings of the final on Saturday night in the south of France somewhere. I don't get it.
Yeah, and like this is not a football story. It goes into broader things. It just happens to coincide. And I'm just imagining, whatever, I assume it's Paris Saint-Germain together with the mayor of Paris deciding, do we have a celebration like this? And do we weigh it up against the risks that people who really have nothing to do with the football might mar it by behaving like this?
But the thing is, they went down the Champs-Élysées on the bus for the parade, which was great, but they were only allowed 110,000 fans there. There would have been 2 million if there was they hadn't capped it. But obviously, this is the biggest avenue in the world, well, one of the biggest, with huge pavements, and only half of them were filled with people. So he didn't look as great as he would have normally. But that's all down to those stupid guys, individuals that would then cause trouble. And I think it's a real shame for everyone, the players, the real fans, even our pleasure to watch celebrations on television or be there and enjoy that moment where it's limited to a certain amount of people, because otherwise there'll be too much risk of trouble. Gab, you have a piece coming up on the website in which you said that the Champions League win puts Paris on the football map. I know you're not trying to troll me, but what are you trying to say exactly?
So what I'm trying to say is that I think people who maybe are newer to the game or don't quite know as much about the history here of French football more broadly. And please feel free to correct me if I get things wrong, right? That you're
Yeah,
the
I think
resource
this is
here.
wrong already. I won't lie to you. I don't agree with this at all, completely.
Okay, so my argument is the reason Paris is not on the football map or was not on the football map is for most of France's history, the most dominant areas in terms of winning titles have been Lyon, have been Marseille, have been Monaco. There's a period with Nantes, a period with Bordeaux. There's just been other parts of the country. The production line of players, we always talk about Paris born and bred. Right now, on a per capita basis in the last 15, 20 years, it's been all from that part of Paris. It wasn't always like that. You look at the most capped French players, many of the greatest French players from the past, I think, apart from Thierry Henry, who is from, I never remember the name of the town, but it's
Paris.
What?
Yeah, it's from.
It's a suburb of Paris, right?
Yeah.
Other than him, there's nobody else. Now, of course, you've got Mbappe from Bondy and so on. So that is a sea change. Before the Qatari takeover, Paris as a city, we're talking about a major European capital, had won 3 French titles. One in the 1930s with Racing Club, and then the other 2, and one in the 80s and one in the 90s with Paris Saint-Germain. What I think has happened since the Qatari takeover, and obviously it's fueled by money, whatever, but it goes way beyond the money because it's not like the Qataris buy the club in 2011 and then all those young players that we see in Paris are so phenomenal decide, oh, look, the Qataris are here. Let me become a better footballer, right? That's not what happened. I think we've seen a massive sea change, and I view this as an outsider, in Paris, where there has been an obvious shift, where now it is a legitimate, if you say you need silverware to have that. I mean, Paris Saint-Germain already European power financially and whatever else. But now they've also have the silverware. And I think it's kind of a change. It's not where we were before. Paris is where Manchester or Madrid or Milan are now, legit, both in terms of winning titles and in terms of producing footballers. That is my theory. You tell me where I'm wrong?
Yeah, I mean, no, we don't have the time for this. So all good. I'll read the piece. All
right, you could go correct me. I mean, France is a country.
No, but like producing players, I don't understand the line about producing players that you said at the end. Like players like Axel Tapp, who played in the Champions League, who played in the league, is just left for Bayer Leverkusen. They're not staying because there's trophies.
No. But I'm saying is they're coming from Paris.
But they came before from Paris.
Of the 12 most capped players.
What does that mean? It doesn't matter. Half of the team World Cup before were from Paris. The squads, half of the squad in the French national team, the boys.
But sorry, in the World Cup before, you mean 2022?
Well, yeah, in 2018
or 2018, yeah,
even 2014. I think there was 7 out of 23.
Right, but this is all something that's happened. This is the evolution of a process that's happened in the past 20 years. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it hasn't always been like that.
I don't know. I need to go back to the 80s and see how many are from Paris, but like. I don't know.
Go back and look, and you will find that of the historically, Paris has punched below its weight within the context of France.
Yeah, maybe, but it doesn't mean that they were not on the football map in France because they didn't win as many titles as Lyon did, or Marseille did, or Saint-Etienne did in the eras where they were.
No, I'm talking
dominating.
on the Super Club map. I'm talking on the Super Club map.
But Super Club map, nobody watches French football. They've never watched French football. There's no French teams that would be on the football on the world football map.
In the 90s, Marseille were
a super club,
right?
They had 3-4 years where they were clearly 2 finals in 3 years, where they were great. But like, I mean, no, but maybe, yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what you're getting at.
Read the piece. Get back to me. Sure. I'm happy to be educated on it.
No, it's not that. There's no education to me. I'm not really sure. I don't really see the interest of the piece anyway. So like, I don't know. I'm not sure what we're getting at in here. That's the only thing.
Okay, I'm getting into the fact that in the 1990s, Paris...
They had 2 Champions League semi-final in a row. What does that mean? That means nothing. I don't understand. Marseille never had two Champions League semi-final in a row. PSG did in the 90s. And then you're saying they were not on the football map. Two Champions League semi-final in a row. I don't understand. They won the 1996 Cup. So they did semi-final of the Champions League, semi-final of the Champions League, final of the Cup Winners' Cup that they win, final of the Cup Winners' Cup that they lost against Ronaldo Barcelona. And you say to me they're not on the football map. I don't understand.
That is the one European trophy that they've won, apart from the Intertoto Cup.
These 4 seasons in the 90s, they're one of the best European clubs. But it's fine, Gab. I didn't know this was coming. I didn't see that question when I prepared for the show. But it's cool, man. I've got
you haven't had a chance to read the piece.
Yeah. So I'll read it. I'll happily read it, man. I'll happily read it.
The other point I make in the piece is that when we think about why Qatar bought the club in 2011, right? Everybody said it's a combination of preparation for the 2022 World Cup, soft power, sort of projecting Qatar's image in the world. And they spent an enormous amount of money, some of it through, I think, if I'm allowed to say, dubious sponsorship. They breached financial fair play, they reached settlements like Manchester City did. I'm wondering now, they're at a point now where their losses last season were 56 million. That's down from more than 400 million 3 years before that. And pandemic had something to do with it too, right? If they can get this model right, they're moving towards break even. I mean, this year they may actually potentially possibly make a profit. I think Mbappe might have something to do with whether they make a profit or not.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, does this set up the fact where the Qatari owners might say, and I don't want to ask you how you feel about it as a fan of somebody from Paris, where they say, you know what, we have built this thing. We surely lost money on it overall, but now we have built, as a global brand, I think Paris Saint-Germain right now, just anecdotally traveling, if they're in the same category as Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, and so on, just purely as a brand, just purely the shirts, the Jordan collaboration, all the stuff. Are they going to be at the point where they say, you know what, maybe it's time to get out. Maybe it's time to hand this over to somebody else because we have built this. Our job here is done. How would you feel about that? And
that's not what they're saying now. Again, on Saturday,
they just won the title.
Well, they're about to build a brand new stadium that will take them 10 years probably. So they would not invest.
Which would add value to the club as well, of course.
I don't know. I mean, as long as they sell it to the right person, it's always the same. I think there's a lot of fans who don't really mind so much who owns them, as long as things are working out and teams and the club is doing well overall. But when they arrived in 2011, the revenue of the club was 66 million euros. They nice 800 million or something like that, with some contract with other companies that the Qatari also own. So it's a bit different, but they've done an incredible job. And I've got no issue. I know some people we're not happy as fans. I know a lot of people say this is sports washing and you should not support a club that is owned by a state like Qatar. I'm very happy with Qatar and Nasser Al Khelaifi and the Emir being my owners. And I'm a European champion. So there's nothing really that can be taken that away from me.
It's time. It's Texter time. Our heroes, Botafogo, beat Neymar Santos 1-0. Jules, I guess it's all about the red card for which Neymar apologized.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the defeat is bad, to be fair, because Santos stay towards the bottom of the table and fighting against relegation, which is not really the idea. And Neymar got sent off for a second yellow for scoring with his hands, which, to be fair, for all the Neymar that we've seen through the years and everything, and all the great and the not so great, I think this is the last thing that I thought he could be doing. I won't lie. I really did.
And to be clear, for those who haven't seen it, this is not like, you'd be like, well, Neymar scored with his hand in a Champions League final. Yeah, this is not like that at all. He tried to get away with it. He didn't. He later apologized.
But he should not have done it in the first place, though, full stop.
In the age of VAR, and they do have
everything.
VAR in Brazil.
It's mad. It's really mad. Lionel Messi scores 2 goals and notches 2 assists as Inter Miami destroyed the Columbus Crew 5-1. Sorry, Gabby. Crisis over just in time for the Club World Cup?
2 wins and 1 draw in their last 3 games. I think 5 goals overall for Messi himself. He looked good now. The Columbus Crew goalkeeper, who I was not familiar with, really had a very, very rough time. Didn't help things. But yeah, no, he's gearing up nicely. And, we talked about Mascherano crisis, blah, 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 when the results are saying that. And obviously getting knocked out of the Champions Cup in the semifinal. But no, it looks like they're turning it around. And he's looking sharp.
Yeah.
Jules, this brings us to an end. But we're not done.
No, of course not.
Just because we have continental champions in North America and Europe too. We got to come back on Thursday because it's Nations League time.
Yes.
The transfer window's heating up and plenty other stuff. So until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.